Hello, hello. We are back here with episode 2 of the Call on the Field Stance podcast. I'm Ryan Denchef here with Jeff Mapis. And let's just jump right into it, man. The Cleveland Browns. We were both at the game. It was a clusterfuck of misery.
It was awful. It started off so awesome. Getting into the stadium alone was chaotic. Bunch of people, talking to my other buddies that were at the game, season ticket holders, they said they've never seen that amount of people rush into the stadium, especially that early. I drove by the Muni lot afterwards.
The atmosphere was electric.
I've never seen so much trash and shit piled up.
Yeah, I was down there, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock. We got a little bit of a late start, and it was a madhouse down there, bro.
Yeah,
it was a madhouse. Just, I mean, a normal Sunday on the Muni lot is crazy as it can be, as it is, but it was just amplified another level. I felt like the energy was unlike anything I've ever felt at a Browns game.
Right.
And just the letdown on the field. Yeah, did you have trouble getting into the stadium? Because I know they have this league-wide policy now with all this electronic only.
Yeah, so you can actually still show up with printed out tickets.
Sure.
So those scanned in fine. Yeah,
they were harping so hard, like
they were. That's what they want. So I was there really early. Fortunately, I got to go on the field before the game. That was dope.
Yeah, man. So we actually never got caught. We never caught up about that because I Monday morning went straight to Dallas for a work trip. So we're recording today. It's Thursday. We try to get these out Thursday. Hopefully, we can still get this posted. Within the next few hours here today on the 12th. But we haven't really got a chance to, shoot the shit a little bit. How was that?
We'll get to that. But getting into the stadium, my God, dude. So we were there early because we wanted to get onto the field as soon as we could. Their scanners were all sorts of messed up, trying to get people in. I mean, it took forever.
Yeah, ours, it took us forever. We ended up, because we went early, probably like an hour before kickoff or so, because I knew I wanted to get into the stadium and see all the everything going on, all the fanfare before. And we barely made it in. Like, during the intros, we saw the last 5 or 6 players get introed, which were all the good players, luckily. Like, we saw Njoku, I think, Baker. Njoku was the first, and then, I think Chubb, Baker, Jarvis, OBJ.
Baker was definitely last.
Yeah, he was last for sure. So we saw, like, the main 5 or few good players, and that place was going absolutely insane.
The entrances were awesome, man. So getting on the field was pretty sweet. I walked past Bernie Kosar. I mean, they all had people around them, and it was kind of chaotic at times, but went over to one of the corner of the end zones where the Browns were warming up. So Myles Garrett, before they had pads on, all he was doing was playing catch. It was kind of hilarious. That's literally all he was doing while you see other D linemen stretching in the end zone. Baker was throwing passes to our wide receivers and tight ends in the opposite corner. Well, then they moved over to the corner right where I was standing. So I got a video of Odell snagging the ball one-handed on one of them, one of the passes. So it was cool. Dude, NFL players up close, holy shit, they are specimens.
Yeah.
2 Titans defensive linemen walked past me to go through their tunnel. I mean, my God, their legs are fucking tree trunks. I'd never been that close to an active NFL player. They're huge. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, but just the energy, like I said, was unlike anything I've ever really experienced at a Browns game, especially, the home opener, all the hype that surrounded Cleveland and, getting OBJ and Olivier Vernon, Richardson, obviously all the other guys that we've had, like Baker, Miles, Jarvis, all them. So the hype was just high as it can be in the national spotlight, left and right, every day. And the egg that they laid, my God. What did you see that is the biggest concern for you? Because I know, going into the game, my 2 main concerns I'd say would be I was concerned about the offensive line, and I was mildly concerned about Freddie Kitchens' first experience as head coach. Can't really say I saw anything that changed either of those concerns.
Still week 1.
But yeah, still is week 1. Kind of just, what did you see week 1 that kind of stood out as maybe concerns of a 30-point loss?
What stood out to me was after that first drive, which again, all this hype and build up carried over into the game. We score on the first drive. It's like, oh,
yeah, I heard
my
a
God.
stat of, I can't remember what it was now, but it was the first time in a very long time the Browns scored on their first drive of a season.
Oh, I believe it. So, after that, they just
missed the extra point, of course.
Right. Yeah, that's
natural Cleveland Browns fashion.
That's another sore topic, but the offense never seemed to really get into any sort of rhythm after that drive. They went a lot of one tight end, one running back, and 3 receivers, and they went 5 wide a lot. Our O-line definitely struggled.
Yeah, I wasn't really too concerned with the play calling. I thought it was all right.
I'm not going to nip. Wasn't going down
really
that direction.
Yeah,
it just seemed like
really
they went
out.
a lot of 5 wide often.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. It wasn't working.
Obviously, the offensive line is what was more or less the downfall, and the penalties, which you can contribute a lot to the offensive line. That's like 9 or 10 holding penalties on the offensive line, or something like that, or 12 total penalties by offensive linemen if you include homie kicking a man in the face.
Yeah, we kick players in the face.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ.
Starting left tackle right there.
Yeah. And then, things kind of just crumbled from there and just never were able to recover. Brought in the backup left tackle. Well, the backup tackle, more or less. We only had, I think, 1 backup tackle on the roster or something like that. Lamb, I think the dude's name was.
Eventually, we slid Hubbard over to left.
Yeah, injury
left side.
Forced Hubbard to come over. He was god-awful, Jesus Christ.
Cameron Wake fucked him up all game, dude.
Hubbard should not be on an NFL roster, let alone starting on an offensive line. So the offensive line is really something that needs to be addressed. We talked about Trent Williams for the Redskins, perhaps. Well, he's been on the trading block for
trade a
weeks
first-round
now.
pick for him and be done with it.
The latest I saw from him was that he's not showing up to practice, so maybe that'll impact his value, which would be nice. But I would definitely be willing to give up a first-round pick.
I mean, we all think Baker is our franchise quarterback. Again, it's only week 1. Baker is like my least of concerns with the Browns. So you already have your quarterback. Those first-round picks, they're a little more expendable now that you already have your franchise quarterback with a lot of young talent on this team already. I mean, you have pieces in place. Do you really need a first-round pick every single draft?
Yeah, no. If you look at their upcoming draft, more or less guarantee they're going to pick an offensive lineman anyways, I would imagine. Who you're going to get better than a guy who's established in the league, who can come in right now when you got all these studs on these young studs on early contracts, their rookie deals, getting paid way under their value. They got to do something with this offensive line because that was atrocious performance.
Yeah. I actually read Cush didn't look too bad at guard, but we traded
I think he'll
with
be
the
fine.
Bills for Wyatt Teller, and he didn't play. So I think interior-wise, I think they'll be fine. But outside, I mean, good Lord. Greg Robinson is a false start machine at times, kicks people in their faces. So that's not, that's not going to bode well.
And that's the only thing about the play calling that had me a little bit peeved, I guess, is we knew the offensive line was trash or was just getting manhandled up front. So, like you said, they spread the offense out so much and had all these long developing plays that with an offensive line that doesn't know what the hell they're doing, that hasn't had very much experience playing together anyways, let alone their talent's not very good. We need to do more quick
Get the ball
plays,
out quick.
Mix in some of that RPO we saw last year. That seemed to work really well. I mean, Baker's decision-making he showed last year was one of his best attributes, and along with his accuracy. So get the running game involved, which couldn't really do that based on all the damn penalties. I mean, you're backed up on 1st and 20.
Right.
After holding penalties and all that kind of nonsense. So
the penalties through the game plan. So that's why you can't really knock on play calling or any sort of scheme, really. I mean, it totally throws everything off when, like you said, the down and distance on early downs is 20 yards, 25 yards, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So, I mean, being optimistic, though, it was just 1 week. the defense with Tennessee, I mean, they're a solid team. They've had some good seasons the last few years. I believe they did make the playoffs last year, didn't they? They didn't play the Colts and lost the first round. Can't remember if that's entirely accurate. They might have just barely missed the playoffs. But regardless, they're above 500 team for the last several years. They have a really good defense. Their secondary is one of the better in the league. So I mean, the matchup wasn't the best. I was expecting a little bit more from the defensive line. Olivier Vernon didn't really show much yet. Hopefully he gets going. Hopefully get Myles Garrett to open up a little bit. I thought the D-line, particularly Myles Garrett, would really go to town on, a Lawan-less offensive line for the Titans, but that really didn't pan out. Got busted and beat by a few screen plays. It was just a miserable game. But like I said, optimistically, was just the first game. They have a ton of talent yet. Clean up the penalties, keep the offensive line from injuries and getting ejections and all this other kind of stuff. And that brings us into week 2 for the Browns. What do you see lining up against the Jets? Monday night, prime time, first big game of the year for the Browns.
Well, Darnold, we found out, has mono.
Which is hilarious.
So he is not playing on Monday.
I think, when that news, I think you texted me a screenshot of that news right when it broke, and my first response was, if the Browns do not win Monday night, their season is pretty much a wrap.
I mean, if you can't beat the Jets without their starting quarterback, what are you doing?
Talking about the secondary of the Titans being one of the better in the league, the Jets, conversely, are not very good at all. So hoping to see a lot from a guy like Jarvis Landry working out of that slot. OBJ, hopefully he gets some deep balls thrown his way. We didn't really see any of that last week. And then, defensively, you got basically one guy to stop, and that's Le'Veon Bell, who has kind of been a menace against the Browns when he was with Pittsburgh. But their offensive line is not nearly as good as Pittsburgh's. Who's their backup? Trevor Siemian now stepping in at QB, something like that?
I believe so, actually.
Yeah, so they just traded for Demaryius Thomas, so he'll probably be lacing up. Hopefully for his sake. I always like DT. But the Browns better show out.
Yeah,
on Monday night.
I want to see a clean game. You never seeing issues from week 1, as many as we had, transfer into week 2. Yeah. You want to see improvement. It's a very winnable game. And in the NFL, no game is easy. So these very manageable games, especially early in the season when their bodies aren't worn down, still a little bit fresh. You got to win this game because then you play the Rams, then you play Baltimore in a big division matchup.
That's on the road, right?
Baltimore is, yeah.
I know we got the Rams at home on Sunday night, week 3.
Right.
And then the Patriots coming up shortly thereafter. I can't remember which week that is, but
the first half of the season schedule is a little more difficult than the back end. So, even if you're 500, 4-4 out of that stretch, you're still in position to make a push for the division and wild card spot. You go 9-7, you're likely to get in with that wild card spot.
Yeah,
so
I mean this is just a must-win game all around. I don't really know that there's much more that really can be said about that. Like we kind of talked about, getting pressure, being able to stop Le'Veon Bell, and then being able to get pressure up front to get Trevor Siemian, off of his toes. I mean, he really doesn't have anybody to throw to.
Right. I mean, I want to see the offense.
The one homie got injured too. Quincy Enunwa, I think he's out. So they've got Jameson Crowder and maybe Demaryius Thomas if he's able to play.
Yeah,
which
with
I think
Siemian
he will.
Throwing to him.
And
come on.
Obviously Le'Veon Bell. And then, like I said, defensively, the Jets aren't very good. C.J. Mosley, I think, is still injured. I saw he got injured, but I didn't really look at the extent of that. Let me look it up really quick. But he being one of the best linebackers in the league, if he remains out, that's really going to help the Browns' chances.
Says he expects to play week 2.
Oh, all right. Okay. So
Le'Veon Bell has got cleared today also.
Gotcha. So, C.J. Mosley, that's a big, bonus on that Jets defense to have him in there.
Too.
So I'm not really concerned with the offense if they can stay out of the penalties and get the run game moving a little bit. I think it's going to open up a little bit for guys like OBJ and Juice to just tear it up.
I want to see the Browns establish a lead in that first half to where we can let our defensive line pin their ears back and get after a backup quarterback here and totally shut the Jets down and walk away from that game with a very sound win. I'm not expecting to go from, only 18 penalties were called. They got flagged more than 20 times. I'm not expecting that to all of a sudden turn to only 5 penalties in a game. I think that's a little unrealistic. But.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there were some questionable calls. There were some stupid penalties that, Myles Garrett, I think, got flagged for punching a guy in the face.
What the hell was that? That was honestly one of the most surprising things I saw in the game.
Yeah.
He usually, he's a captain. He's usually even keel. I don't know.
And then
that was weird.
Greg Robinson kicking a guy in the face, like some of that stuff. Freddie needs to clean that up. So,
not just Freddie. Baker, the leader, needs to tell him what's up.
Yeah.
You can't fucking win games if you're getting 15-yard penalties. For what?
Right.
Like, did you really have to kick the dude? Like, why was that your reaction?
Yeah.
Miles, why was that your reaction to hit the dude open-handed in the face mask?
Yeah.
Like, what? Just chill out. That was early in the game, too.
Right.
Like,
clean up the nonsense. Get focused on what you're doing. Don't let the frustration of not being successful early on fluster you to the point where you make stupid penalties like that, and just get the W. Because, like you said, we got the Rams at home following that game. One of the obviously went to the Super Bowl, one of the better teams in the NFL. Ravens looked awesome. Granted, it was the Dolphins, who may not win a game all year, but the Ravens are still a solid team. Then you got the 49ers Monday night again on the road. Come back against the Seahawks at home, which that should be a win. I'm not really concerned about the Seahawks. And then you got the Patriots. So, like you said, tough first half of the schedule. Is a big game to set the tone for the rest of the season. If they start 0-2, the Browns are in some serious trouble.
It'll be tough. And, we call it a must-win game. It doesn't mean our season is totally over.
Weird to say in week 2,
but come on. I mean, when you weigh in more factors like the schedule, for example, and how we looked in week 1, I mean, if you don't see some improvement and squeak out that win, I don't know that you can really say it's going to get much better moving forward.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking, like you said, looking at Baker to kind of set the tone and be that leader to command victory and just kind of set up the rest of the season. I mean, if you split 1-1, first 2 games, go into that Sunday nighter against the Rams in a decent spot to kind of set up a little bit of some momentum and really get the season on track. Week 1 kind of sucked, but hey.
Last year, there were playoff teams that can look ugly to start the year.
Yeah.
It's how you finish.
I think I saw of, 12 teams that make the playoffs every year, 7 of them of last year's playoff teams lost week 1.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
More than half of the last year's playoff teams.
So, it's not the end of the world, but, given that it's the Jets, very manageable game, you got to get it done.
So, you did mention the Patriots. And I did mention the Steelers getting slapped a little bit. What is your reaction to that game? Because I actually didn't end up catching it. It was that late game, and like I said, I caught a flight at 7 a.m. Monday morning, so I tried to hit it a little early. But from all accounts and highlights and recaps that I saw, pure domination yet again by the defending Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I tuned in and out. I mean, yet again, Mike Tomlin loses to Bill Belichick. I mean, many teams do, but the Steelers are also a storied and well-respected, well-ran franchise, and they just cannot get it done against the Patriots.
I mean, they talked about perhaps, with all the drama going through Pittsburgh, I guess can't say you lost Le'Veon Bell because he didn't play last year, but Antonio Brown, best offensive weapon and best player on that entire team, gone. There was talks about perhaps Pittsburgh regressing. I don't really see that. Like, I think Pittsburgh's going to be a 9-10 win team.
Fine moving forward.
But 3 points is not good.
No, it's not good. I didn't watch a whole lot of their offense to see, what the hell is going on or anything. But look, the Patriots are a really good team.
Jeez.
I mean, best coach of all time, coaching them. One of the best quarterbacks of all time, if not the greatest of all time, depending on how you want to look at that. They have 3 running backs that they can rotate in and out, and they're all
Which
legit.
has been
They're all legit.
already worrying me for my fantasy team because I have Sony Michel and James White.
That's
It's kind of unfortunate.
nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and then they add Antonio Scumbag Brown. I mean, they just got weapons for days. Week 13, 14, 15.
I heard he's supposed
here
to
comes
play
Gronk.
week 2.
Oh, he'll play.
Also.
Oh, he'll play.
So
Gronk, I'm sure, will come back towards the end of the season and go for the playoff push and go for another ring.
that would be hilarious.
It's going to be ridiculous. Josh Gordon, obviously, is still there.
If-
Suited up. We'll see if he can make it actually through
if
the
him
entire
and Brown
season.
make it the entire season, I mean, you're talking about Josh Gordon at one point was one of the better, if not the best. He put together the best season statistically.
Him and AB were number 1, 2 in receiver statistics that one season.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're giving them to Tom
The
Brady
greatest quarterback
and
of all
Bill
time,
Belichick.
and-
Are
yeah.
you kidding me?
And their defense is solid, one of the better in the league as well. I mentioned this the other day. Let me tell you what. Tom Brady's wife is the real MVP of the New England Patriots, in my opinion.
He doesn't have to get the contract that Pat Mahomes is about to be owed.
Bro,
He's already well set for cash.
I mean, this man has never been, one of the top. I don't even know if he's ever been a top 5 paid quarterback as the greatest quarterback of all time. The most important position on the field also the best isn't getting paid like it because Giselle makes more than double is worth more than double his net. So she's worth, I looked it up the other day, like $400 million. He's worth less than half that.
That's awesome.
So this man can just be like, fuck it. I'm going to take a pay cut, if you want to call it a pay cut. I'm going to take undervalue from what I
I'm going to
deserve
play for $0
because it
this
doesn't
year.
matter. Because it doesn't matter. Because my wife is way more richer than I am, and I can afford to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of guys can't. So the fact that they have just $15 million lying around to go throw at Antonio Brown, like, Jesus Christ, it's absurd.
It's absurd.
So the Patriots are just.
Did you look at his contract at all?
No, I didn't.
It's set up with a bunch of incentives. Like, there's
Dude.
not much guaranteed money, but if he hits these milestones throughout the year, he gets like, oh, here's $1 million for this. Here's
And
$1.5
who's to say-
for this.
And who's to say there's not a backhand wink wink deal with Robert Kraft that just says, oh, hey, once you retire, here's wink wink 5% of this fucking
Yeah, who knows?
franchise or something like that. Like, there's so much probably backdoor stuff that nobody even knows about that is just going to get him to get less than he deserves. Brady, 2-year, $41 million. The man's making 20.5 a year. And you got guys like who are we talking about? Dak Prescott demanding $40 million a year.
I know, right?
Tom Brady's getting that for 2 seasons. So
Shit, look what Sam Bradford got paid for playing how many games in his entire career.
So Giselle is the real MVP of that organization, in my opinion, because you got the greatest of all time making $20.5 million a year, which is ridiculous.
Right.
So fuck the Patriots. That's all I really got to say about that.
Yeah. How about the game of the week, though? Without a doubt, the Saints-Houston game Monday night.
Hell of a game.
Dude, that was, I mean, both teams are so good. So many good players, both sides of the ball. And you've got an up-and-comer in Deshaun Watson at quarterback for one team, and you've got the veteran Drew Brees on the Saints doing Drew Brees things to close that game out. And how about, a 58-yard field goal to win the fucking game? Are you kidding me?
Lutz with
Holy
the nuts.
shit,
Big
dude.
nuts, Lutz. I tell you what, that game was awesome. Like I said, I was down in Dallas, and there was at the hotel, there was, I don't know, probably quite a handful of Houston fans chilling in the lobby watching the game and cheering and everything else. So it was a pretty cool atmosphere to be down south to watch that game. And it was just like a back and forth battle, like you said, of 2 great quarterbacks who are just, you got Drew Brees, this savvy veteran who's just done it for years. You got Deshaun Watson, who's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. Talent on both sides of the ball at receiver and all other skill positions. It was just pretty much an awesome game.
Yeah, no, it was really fun to watch.
I ended up,
Deshaun Watson is the truth, man.
dude, I've been telling
He
you
is a
since
good
draft
football
day.
player.
Well, I think when we were talking about it, his final season at Clemson, I was like, all right, the Browns just got to lose every game. Fucking draft Deshaun Watson, will be set. So then they lost every game, and then they didn't draft Deshaun Watson.
They didn't
but
take him.
it ended up
Neither
work-
did the Bears.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It ended up working out, I guess, getting Baker and all that. But he is legit, and that team is for real now. Dude. Getting Tunsil at O-line is
It helps. It helps.
He looked strong, even though
He's really good.
Coming into a new offense. I mean, it's more or less similar kind of schemes, I would imagine. Not too difficult to kind of make that transition from one team to another, but I'm sure he's only going to improve as the season goes on. That was a huge move to solidify that offensive line and the most important position on the offensive line for a guy like Deshaun Watson.
Right. I got to tell you, I like the Saints a lot.
Bro,
this
yeah,
year.
I can't remember last episode if we actually got into our Super Bowl picks.
I don't think so.
I know we kind of had it on the list, and I think we just skimmed over it. I think when I first initially wrote out my list, I'm going to have to change it a little bit because I had the Colts going to the soup, and without Andrew Luck, I don't really see that happening now.
It's not I was high on them too, but
I think when we talked about it a month or so back, I had Saints over to Packers in the NFC, which that looks pretty solid. I think I'm going to stick with that. The Packers defense looks like
their secondary is much improved. I want to see more of the Packers. God, that game was ugly, by the way, on Thursday night. First game of the NFL season, and the Bears and Packers kind of laid an egg for entertainment value.
Yeah, it was.
Unless you like laughing at Trubisky.
Yeah, well, that's always fun, mentor guy. We're here in Cleveland. But I mean, their defense is no joke, though. They added quite a few pieces this offseason. I think the Packers are going to make some serious noise, man.
They could.
Trying to pull up my notes because I did, but I can't find them. But I have to go off memory.
I got
who they added. Zadarius Smith, that other Smith, Preston Smith, I think his name is. Couple studs. Amos had that game-sealing pick in the end zone. I mean, their defense is probably the most improved defense in the league, and pair that with Aaron Rodgers, I think they got a pretty damn good chance to make a push at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they got Alexander out of LSU too. Another DB. LSU shits out DBs.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, the
Tony
Packers.
Brown too. Damn.
Packers Saints in my NFC ship.
In the NFC title, I got the Rams going back, facing the Saints, with the Saints getting it done.
Yeah, those last two seasons, Jesus. I could not imagine if being a Browns fan watching that happen to the Browns 2 years straight with that Minnesota miracle, I think they call it.
Oh man!
And then the horseshit non-pass interference call that happened last year. Yeah, could you imagine just being a Browns fan watching that happen?
No, I'd freak. I mean, this year what's going to happen is we make the playoffs, play the Patriots, and Josh Gordon gets a game-winning touchdown and gives us all a bird. Nice fuck you from Josh Gordon.
I mean, that would mean the Browns are going to have to win a postseason game, which honestly I don't see happening.
Oh, probably because they'll get the bye.
Yeah,
just saying that would be right up in Browns, territory.
Yes, it would. That would be something we'd see.
What you got in the AFC?
Man, I mean, I had to go with the Patriots at this point. There's no reason not to. I think I had the Browns probably going just because it was fun to talk about, which, I still think they could. I think I had Colts, Browns, or something like that with Colts going. I don't really see that happening now that Andrew Luck's injured. So I don't know, Patriots over to Browns just because, but more realistically, it'll probably be Patriots-Chiefs again, really.
Yeah, I mean... It's an easy route, but at the same time, the Chiefs' offense is stupid. Sammy Watkins went off right away in that game.
Dude.
But yeah, I got the Patriots against the Chiefs with the Patriots going to another soup.
Patriots Saints then, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, probably me too. I mean, it just makes the most sense.
I want to see Drew Brees get another ring. I really enjoy watching him. They're a fun team. Kamara is an absolute freak. I love watching him with the ball, man. His speed is it's unreal.
Yeah.
So I like the Saints a lot this year. And the Patriots, I had them picked preseason. Why not? Seems like they're in the Super Bowl every single year anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So with all that NFL talk, you ready to get into some NCAA football talk?
Yeah, let's get into it a little bit. Saturday, I did watch a little bit of college football. Ohio State kicked some serious ass and looked very good doing it.
Yeah.
Their defensive line is so disgusting. Chase Young, we talked about it last week.
He's a freak.
The dude is next level. It's absurd. Like, this dude, I think he had a blocked field goal, a few sacks. He's everywhere on the field. always interrupting the play in the backfield. He's the real deal. We saw it again. He's going to be a nightmare for Big Ten offenses.
He really stepped up last year when Bosa went out.
Yeah, he
and
did.
His coming out party was Penn State. Ended the fucking game. I mean, that was
when they
sweet.
ran a option or whatever on 4th and 5.
Well, we won't talk about that play call, but he's a stud, top 5 pick, might be number 1 overall depending on who's picking, but it'll probably be the Dolphins and they need a quarterback, so top 3, we'll say.
Yeah. So there's not a whole lot to say about Ohio State. They just purely dominated from start to finish. Their defense looked next level. Their defensive line, particularly offensively, Justin Fields really came out the first game. So we talked about it last week. The play calling in the first game, I think, was very conservative. He hit a couple open receivers early in that first game that really padded the stats, got those first couple quick touchdowns, and then it kind of coasted the rest of the game. But week 2 against Cincinnati, he really came out guns ablazed and showed out and showed why he is such highly touted as one of the better starting quarterbacks in the NCAA. Yeah, I mean, it was still Cincinnati, though, even though their defense did play pretty well week 1. Granted, it was against UCLA, which Chip Kelly's won like 3 games out of 14 in his first 2 seasons. So they're looking to be not very good, but they could not stop Ohio State's offense. J.K. Dobbins went off. They just had their way with Cincinnati. So there's really not a whole lot to talk about in that respect. I am looking forward to this weekend. I think they got Indiana at noon.
Yeah.
So glad it's not a night game because for whatever reason, Indiana always seems to give the Buckeyes trouble.
Indiana's that weird school.
I know. On the road,
Michigan always plays them before Ohio State, and it sucks.
Like I said, luckily it's a not a night game at Indiana. So I'm looking forward to that game. That's going to be a little bit more of a test in the first 2 weeks. Indiana's got some ballers, and that's the game obviously that I'm highlighting for week 3. But don't want to jump to week 3 without highlighting your old boys over there in Michigan, almost dropping an egg against Army, who threw the ball maybe 4 times in
like
relevant
3 or 4 times,
and they kind of threw it towards the end when they didn't think they had any other options. But man, they looked bad.
It was discouraging. Talked about this with the Browns, all these week 1 issues. The main thing you're looking for in week 2 is to not have those same issues carry over into week 2. Said the same thing on our last episode about Michigan versus Middle Tennessee State. Had a lot of positives, but there's a lot of sloppy play. Senior quarterback fumbling twice. Like, it just can't happen.
He's supposed to be the golden boy up there.
So this game against Army, guess what happens on the first possession of the game? Shea fucking fumbles and loses the fumble. So, Jim Harbaugh is in his first year. He is a former quarterback. He is the quarterback coach, okay? In his tenure at Michigan, the offensive side of the ball has always been viewed as the side that is holding Michigan back. They've balled out on defense. When I saw a question today, who's the best player on Michigan in the past 5 years, and when you list out all the studs, they're all on defense. Yeah. They're all on defense. So he's an offensive guy. He's a quarterback coach, former quarterback. You'd think he'd want to unleash his quarterbacks and throw the damn rock. Yet our offenses suck. We have Wilton Spate, who had a decent campaign. He was nothing special in 2016 when Michigan had a pretty solid year. To open up 2017, he regressed very clearly, and before getting injured for the rest of the year. Now Shea Patterson in his senior season looks like he has regressed to start the year in ugly fashion. I think he has 5 fumbles, and 4 of them, and maybe 3 of them are lost.
And that's kind of the thing they were talking about, him perhaps coming out of out to join the NFL draft. Last season. So he decides, you know what, I'm going to come back, try to will Michigan to a playoff appearance, and he's looked pretty shitty. 19 for 29, 207 yards. And didn't really do anything on the ground. Got sacked a couple times. So he had negative yards there, but their offense did nothing. And Army, pulling it up, had 4 total passing attempts and scored 21 points. So,
Yeah.
and I remember watching towards the end of that game, it was, less than 2 minutes, and they kind of chucked one up on first down, knowing that Michigan was going to stack the box and try to, obviously put down the run game on lock to try to get the ball back or keep them out of field goal range towards the end there. So if you take that one away, 3 passing attempts.
Well, the thing is, Michigan's defense in regulation held them to 14 points and held them to the lowest yards per play average they've had since 2015. The defense did their job.
Yeah.
The
Second
offense
half didn't score a point.
Some of the shit I don't understand, we put in like our third or maybe even fourth string running back, and he fumbled. First play we handed off to. This is in the first half.
Bro, Harbaugh tried to lose that game in the end.
Not kicking the field goal.
Well, I'm talking about right at the end when he, first off, calls that timeout was really stupid. I wish Army would have made it obviously I like to watch Michigan lose, but so I can't remember exactly. I think they run the ball on third down, and there's, 18, 20 seconds left, rush onto the field, getting ready to kick this field goal. They're basically set with about 6 to 5 seconds left, and Harbaugh decides he's going to ice the kicker, which first off, the dude's in the Army. Good luck icing him. But also, you just give him a whole opportunity to get set, get his shit together, look at the field goal a little bit closer, get his mind right. Fuck it. I mean, make him kick it. He's lucky he didn't make it.
Right.
But, once that game went into overtime, I didn't really think there was much of a chance that Army really was going to do anything, especially with the way it's set up in the NCAA with the back and forth. I was pretty convinced it was going to be all she wrote. But
so you have Jim Harbaugh, dick writers like Joel Klatt, who I actually do like. I like listening to him when it comes to college football, and Colin Cowherd. They actually voiced serious concerns about Jim Harbaugh. It's bad when those two are ripping Jim, because they literally, they defend Jim to the death. But the thing is, and those two had a precursor to the season saying it's now or never for Jim. It's year 5, 4 returning starters on the offensive line, although you haven't had one to start. You've got a bunch of talent at receiver, senior quarterback returning, Zach Charbonnet, true freshman running back. He actually looks like the most talented running back Jim Harbaugh has had in his 5 years. So now you finally have a guy that is reliable at running back. It's now or fucking never. And I got to tell you, we play 7 currently ranked teams this year, still on our schedule. 7. I think it leads the country.
How many losses do you think it takes for Harbaugh to get fired?
I'm really nervous about that he'll somehow manage to go like 9-4 with the bowl game, and and they won't fire him. So I don't know.
You're worried they won't fire him.
I'm almost sick of trying to figure this team out. They've got a bye week this weekend, and then they play on the road. Right. They play on the road against Wisconsin.
Bro, that offense is next level at Wisconsin.
If Jonathan Taylor is nasty, if Michigan continues to look sloppy even after a bye week, they're in trouble. I'm talking 5 losses, bro.
I don't know. Well, I don't know about that.
Looking
at their schedule, it's possible, but I don't know. If they lose 5 games, there's basically a 0% chance Jim Harbaugh keeps his job.
I would agree.
But let's see the rest of their schedule. Rutgers, cake after Wisconsin. They got Iowa at home, Illinois on the road, Penn State on the road, Notre Dame at home, Maryland on the road, Michigan State at home, Indiana on the road, and Ohio State at home, all in a row. It's going to be interesting.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It should be in year 5. You would think Jim Harbaugh would have things rolling and would come out and smack teams around, but to start the year with these sloppy mistakes, I don't get it. I hope
they keep him around as long as he can keep walking them sidelines, because Ohio State's just purely dominated for the last Well, I mean, they've dominated for the last almost
Well,
20 years.
depending on how things go this year, Michigan has a choice to remain Ohio State's bitch or fucking do something about it.
What are they going to
That's all I
do?
have to
What are they
say.
going to do?
I would rather gamble on someone else than keep Jim. That's the definition of insanity. If it's not
Yep.
working, do not continue to do the same thing. Go out and hire a coach that they think they can, whether it's countering Ryan Day or whatever the reason may be.
Just wild that we're at week 2, going into week 3, and all the talk about a 2-0 Michigan team is, will the coach survive the season? It's
I don't
pretty
think
wild.
it's to that point,
crazy.
but it's like, I mean, you've seen some of the 2 games, like they look sloppy.
Bad.
I mean,
They look bad.
upperclassmen making freshman mistakes. Shea fumbling. His accuracy is just abysmal. And what's sad is we have talent
Dude,
at
they
receiver
might
to
score
be thrown
0
to.
points against Ohio State. If they play like they have the first couple weeks, they might not score a point against Ohio
It
State.
would be worse than the shellacking last year.
Yeah.
So
but
it's got to get fixed. It's got to get
Yeah.
fixed, or they're in serious trouble with this schedule.
next week 4, that matchup on the road against Wisconsin, that is going to be a game I'm going to be looking forward to. And it's a noon game. Let's see, I can't remember who the Buckeyes have that game or that week, but might have to flip on that game a little bit because that's going to be the game of the week, probably for sure. But the game of the week last week, LSU Texas, was next level.
Yeah, that game was fun. I didn't, you saw Joey Burrow last year. He was like, pedestrian to above average
Right.
quarterback in college, I would say. And LSU, you can always count on them producing some NFL bodies and, whatever, going 9-3. They got to play in the SEC West, not an easy division. But Joey Burrow,
Dude,
looked really good against Texas. Really good. And I mean, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, those 2 receivers, they balled. They looked really impressive against Texas.
Terrence
And it wasn't
Marshall.
like Texas played all that poorly, I would say.
Terrence Marshall had himself a game as well. Dude, LSU might actually be the real deal. I didn't really have a whole lot of faith in LSU, but I do have a lot of faith in Texas. I think they're going to be really good this year. Ellinger obviously also balled, much like Burrow. But LSU, might have to watch out for LSU in the SEC because if Joe Burrow plays like he did the rest of the season, like he did last week, they'll
be tough.
They're going to be a team to watch out for. Currently ranked 4th, jumped to Ohio State and Oklahoma, rightfully so. Not that rankings at the second week of the season really mean much of anything. But yeah, LSU, I mean, they did give up 38 points, but I still think their defense looked pretty decent. Texas's offense is legit, as we kind of talked about last week in our conference predictions. Yeah, man, that game was really fun. I lost a $5 bet, nothing big, but it was still fun to have a little bit of money in the game.
I got to tell you, I'm looking at LSU's schedule. They've got an absolute cakewalk up until October 12th. They play Florida, but I think they're going to beat Florida.
Yeah.
The game is at home. Then they play Mississippi State. Then they play home against Auburn. Auburn's ranked 8th right now. I don't really buy Auburn. I think LSU is going to win all those games. Then they get a bye after Auburn.
Yep, as does Bama.
Bama gets a bye too.
Oh, of course.
Bama always gets a damn bye before
Yeah,
that
we talked
game,
about
man.
that last. Of course they get a bye. Of course.
But it sets up for probably what will remain a top 5 matchup in early November. LSU at Alabama. Should be fun. But yeah, their schedule is really manageable going into that game.
And then they close out the season
max
after a
one
couple
loss.
easy games after Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas, but they do close the season at home against Texas A&M. Texas A&M, I think, is going to have a decent team. They did get shellacked by Clemson a little bit, but Clemson is just next level.
They're next level.
Trevor
man.
Lawrence, like we talked about him last week. He is just next. He's just, I don't know. You can't really say too much more about him other than he is, like I think I mentioned, probably going to be the highest rated quarterback going into an NFL draft ever.
Sure.
It's hard to compete with that, especially when it's Clemson and they're loaded everywhere else. But Texas A&M will be a team to watch out for, I think, a little bit this season.
Look, Jimbo Fisher is going to get them going. I just don't know
Yeah, man.
with their schedule. It's really tough. I mentioned last time they close their season on the road against Georgia and then on the road against LSU. You're not winning either of those games.
Yeah, probably
It's just
not.
not going to happen. But Jimbo will get them going for sure. It's just he's taking over a program in the SEC West, and you've got LSU with a coach that had already been there a couple of years, and obviously Nick Saban, the current dynasty.
Right.
But they'll get it going, just not this year. So with that college football talk, let's switch it to the other major sport going on right now, Major League Baseball. In the last month here, the playoff stretch, Indians just did what they needed to against the Angels. Off tonight, and tomorrow they'll kick off a huge series with the Minnesota Twins.
Big time, bro. Big time. So they're currently 4 games back in the AL Central. The Twins do play tonight, closing out their series against the Nationals, so there's a chance it'll be either 4.5 or 3.5, depending on how that game goes tonight. This is the series of the season for the Tribe. Last weekend they got the job done a little bit, taking 2 out of 3 against the Twins. And that was on the road. When we spoke last week, getting the podcast up Thursday, that was kind of the defining moment for the Indians. At that point, if they would have, kind of shit the bed, their season, at least for the division, would have been a wrap. And it's, more of the same this weekend. They got 3 at home against the leading Twins. Like I said, either 4.5 or 3.5 games back. You more or less need a sweep.
Here's what's crazy. You probably need a sweep for the wild card, too. We're a half game back.
Yeah.
We're not even in the playoffs today.
Yeah, the Athletics have been handling their business. They had a series going with the Astros. Won at least one game. I'm going to pull up to see where they finished that series off. But the Athletics, I really thought were going to kind of go away a little bit. That's not been the case. The Athletics lost the first game of the series 15-0 and then won the second game 21-7. So pretty high scoring series. Third game they did win as well yesterday, 5-3. So 4-game set. Hopefully the Astros can get it done and inch the Tribe a little bit closer to that wild card.
I got their schedule pulled up here. So like you said, they got the Stros. Then they play the Rangers, Royals, Rangers, Angels for 2 games. Then they close the 4-game series with the Mariners.
Oh, Jesus.
So
they might not lose again.
they will. That's why I said
yeah.
It's not just a sweep for.
Well, you got the Rays. Let's
division.
see what they're. They got Angels, Dodgers, Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah, so we still got a shot there. I think you had mentioned it earlier. The Twins' schedule compared to the Indians. Obviously, the Indians being a little bit more difficult of a schedule. Do you have that pulled up?
Yeah, I got. They play the White Sox, Royals, Detroit, and then Royals again to finish.
Their
pretty
Twins
fucking
might
cake.
Not lose.
Yeah, pretty cake, man. Whereas we play the Tigers, Phillies, and Nationals.
To think that the Indians could win 96, 97 games and not win the Central is... if you would have said before the season the Indians win 97 games and lose the Central, I would have called you absolutely crazy.
It's weird.
I really didn't think the Twins would, hold on to their success. I thought it was kind of a flash in the pan early on in the season, but they've proved to be more or less the real deal. Their offense is next level. Their pitching staff, we'll see what they're able to do if they, assuming at this point they're more or less pretty much going to be able to guarantee themselves a spot in the playoffs, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, let's just look overall at the whole playoff picture. The Yankees obviously wrapped up that division weeks ago. They're still up 9 games to the Rays. Been a wrap. And the Rays, but more or less the fight in the American League is for the wild card in the Central. The Astros are up 8.5 on the Athletics. The Twins, we'll see what happens at We'll see what happens at the end of the series this weekend against the Indians. But the fight is going to be that Central Division and the wild card. And looking at the schedules, each has a little bit easier of a schedule. The Rays a little bit less so, as we mentioned. But it's going to be a tough push, man. It just seems like the Indians always find themselves in a predicament of injuries, and it's going to
late in the year to like key players, man. It just can't catch a break with the injury bug.
Yeah, we were hoping Kluber would be back. It looks like he might not pitch again the rest of this season. If I was a gambling man, I'd say he's not going to pitch again. Carrasco,
that setback weeks ago.
Carrasco balled out the other day. Might have been last night. He looks like he's coming strong back. Maybe we'll see what he can do a little bit if he gets a little bit more work. I think he went almost 2 innings last night. I doubt they're going to move him to the starting rotation. There's not really a need to, but if he can be kind of a stronghold middle reliever for a playoff push, if we can end up getting there, that would be huge. Losing Jose Ramirez is devastating. He's finally coming into his own and putting up performances like he's done for the last couple seasons, MVP style stuff. Him going down is really a blow. So it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. The Twins are playing great baseball, as are the A's and the Rays. So I don't know. What do you see outlook-wise for this American League playoff picture?
I'm going to go ahead and say that Cleveland gets it done and squeaks in here. I actually think the Twins edge us out for the division, and then we get in with a wild card spot, and Tampa Bay gets pushed out of a wild card spot after hearing their schedule they got coming up.
Yeah,
a lot more difficult than the A's and Cleveland
and that's Minnesota. The thing. So let's say the Tribe squeaks into the playoff wild card against the A's. You throw Mike Clevenger, who's been as good as any pitcher in baseball as of late. You should be able to get that done. I mean, you got to. You only get one shot, and then you face up the Yankees, much like last year after going up 2-0 and losing 3 straight to lose in the division series. I would love to see that rematch. The Indians' pitching front-end rotation is one of the better in baseball, and I think that's really what you need. I mean, we saw when the Indians made that run in 2016. I mean, Josh Tomlin was pitching meaningful games in the postseason that season.
Right.
And we were, a few outs away from a World Series victory. So if you got that front end of the rotation that can get going and the offense can, hold their own, I think they could make a little bit of a run. Roberto Perez, man, he's been the surprise of the season for me. That dude has put up some numbers. It's first season, really, that he's actually gotten a shot to play, the majority of games.
Everyday type
right,
baseball.
Which, I mean, baseball especially, and catcher, I would imagine, more so than a lot of other positions, just getting the repetition and getting into a groove and being able to play more or less every day, I think is really a big deal. So, I mean, I was kind of skeptical when they traded Yan Gomes, but Roberto Perez has really held his own and stepped into that position, or stepped into that role of, filling those Yan Gomes shoes, Silver Slugger winner. And, man, Roberto, he stepped up, man.
He did. I was worried about the losing Gomes after last year. Because he was a strong defensive catcher too, and his bat was kind of underrated last year.
Yeah.
But no, I totally agree. Perez has been one of the better surprises of the season for sure. And Bieber and Clevenger, I mean,
next level stuff, man.
Dude, their Bieber's story is awesome. To think that he only made the team in college because someone else lost their scholarship or it wasn't available to him, and now he's in the major leagues throwing,
and there
mid
was
to upper
about
90s.
Him being in the
crazy.
Discussion for a Cy Young, but about a month and a half ago, I mean, wins the MLB All-Star Game MVP in Cleveland. It's just a great story, and pairing him up with a guy like Clev, they did trade Bauer, obviously, so took a little bit of a hit there, but Franmil Reyes is next level power bat.
How many years do we have him locked up for? Like 4 or 5, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I believe he's still in arbitration, so you've got him locked in. Obviously, Puig is done at the end of the season. I doubt they re-sign him, but maybe they make a push to re-sign him. We'll see how that kind of goes. But, for the season right now, I think they're both valuable assets to, make a push towards the World Series more so than maybe Bauer would have, especially when you got a guy like Clevenger and a guy like Bieber going out there and doing what they've done at the front of that rotation. So it is difficult, though, getting to the playoffs and getting one game that can just make or break your entire season. I don't really like the setup of that one-game play-in to get into the postseason that they've added several years back. We saw the Indians in that position a few years ago when they lost to the Rays. Could be a rematch, same situation again this year. Hope not. Hope that they can, maybe get a sweep this weekend at home against the Twins. Really set themselves up for success for the rest of the way out. Put some pressure on the Twins because you look at the Indians roster, you got guys who have been on the team for quite some time, who have made the playoff push, who have been in the World Series. The Twins really don't have that experience. I don't even know who was on that roster of the Twins who's even played in a playoff game, let alone, gone deep into the playoffs. I'd really have to think about it and look at their roster to maybe even pinpoint a couple guys. But the Indians have countless who have still on the squad who played in the World Series. So if they can put pressure on the Twins towards the last couple weeks, it might be the breaking point that the Indians need to push themselves over the top in the Central and win that division, because I don't like one-game playoffs, wild card situations. So if we can avoid that it would be huge. But even if we end up getting in that game, throwing Clevenger in that one game, I think I would really like our chances.
So there was a stretch here recently last month where Brad Hand did not look like the Brad Hand we knew. You pay attention a little more closely than I do. Are we past that phase? Are we back in trustworthy mode with Brad Hand?
I think yes, and I don't really think that there was concern, and sure there still is in many respects, but when you look at a season-long statistical performance, he was so lights out at the beginning of the year. It was next level. So you can't really expect that to continue for an entire season and just be that dominant. So, things balance themselves out over the course of a season.
For sure.
It's just the natural state of MLB. He was so lights out, you only assumed, guys have those seasons where they just can't be hit. But I think he'll be fine. I still trust him. He's still one of the best closers in the game. Yes, he hit a rough patch a little bit there, but he's going to be needed to make a push. If the Indians have any chance of doing anything, Brad Hand will be a part of it. If he's going to suck,
he's got to be.
The Indians are fucked regardless. So
there might be moments where we need him for more than one inning.
And
he's got to be a horse. He's got to be a horse.
I think he can give it to him. Like I said, law of averages only say so. There was only a matter of time where he gave up some runs. I think he will bounce back and has recently. And I think he'll right the ship, especially come playoff time, and he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. I'm not concerned whatsoever with Brad Hand.
Good.
I could be eating my words here if he fucks up and costs the Indians a chance of making a run, but I do trust him. There's a reason why you went out and got him. He's one of the better relief pitchers and closers in the game. You got to lean on him and hope that he can deliver, and I think he can, and I think he will. He's a veteran guy who can get it done, so yeah, I'm not really concerned about it. There was some level and some moments the past few weeks where it had me skeptical, but I think he'll be fine.
What made me nervous was there were some people talking about how his actual pitches were looking flat. Like he didn't have a slider, some of those things.
He did lose his command a little bit.
Man, is this going to stay, or is he going to be able to correct that as the season finishes out here? So, but like you said, we definitely need him. So hopefully we're past that struggling stage and we can rely on him to come in toward the end of the game and shut things down.
Yeah, there's a certain number of guys who you're going to have to rely on, and he certainly is one of them in the back end of that bullpen. So it's, show or go, man. You got to make it happen.
Yep.
And I think he'll be fine.
Good.
So before we move past National League style, I haven't looked at the standings all that closely.
Dude, I got them up. The Dodgers are 19 games.
Well, yeah, that division has been wrapped up for quite some time.
Good Lord.
That division's not all that good. But let's see, what do we got for the wild card?
Wild card's tight. The Central teams.
Yeah, the Central in general is still kind of up for grabs. It's only a 4-game gap between the Cardinals, and the Brewers and Cubs are both tied there. So it looks like the Brewers and Cubs pretty much locked it in. Well, it's them and the Nationals. One of those 3 teams is more or less likely to get in that wild card game.
It's so bizarre that we have a late in the season series with a National League team now.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
They're, a couple of years back, I think now they changed interleague play to be commingled throughout the whole season. But
yeah, I mean,
it sucks that we have to play them because they're obviously a playoff contending team, and the Indians have to go up against them when they're in win now mode as well as we are. So.
Yeah, and I mean, now that you mention that, it is kind of weird that we're going to have, in the last week of the season, the last 4 games, playing on the road against a National League team. So one of our better hitters on our team is just going to be sidelined because we're facing...
We're on the road?
Yes, against the Nationals, final series
sucks.
of the season. We do also face the Phillies, but we're at home. But the last series of the season is on the road versus the Nationals. So we have a disadvantage of one of our better hitters just sitting the bench because the fucking National League decides that they want to have pitchers bats.
Yeah, that's
is an argument
annoying.
and a discussion for a whole nother podcast, which is just, I don't understand how we have a sport where 2 leagues have different rules, but that's neither here nor there. That is unfortunate for the Indians that they're going to have that situation.
Well, it sucks late in the season.
Right. Last series of the season, make or break, more or less at that point, one would assume, and you're having a pitcher bat in an American League series. So it is unfortunate, but is what it is. I think National League, looking like we said, kind of the Nationals, the Cubs, and the Brewers are all kind of more or less fighting for that final spot. The Diamondbacks are still a few games behind those, behind the Brewers and the Cubs. And the Mets and Phillies are also in it a little bit as well, but the Brewers are pretty much, I don't know, they might be fucked now that Christian Yelich, did you see this highlight?
What a freak injury, man.
Fouls a ball off his kneecap and breaks it, ends his season.
He went down right away,
That is quite unfortunate.
That sucks.
They might be fucked at this point. You lose your best player. If the Indians lost Lindor today, we'd be fucked too.
Yeah,
so,
that would be,
it's probably going to be Cubs-Nationals in that wild card game. And I don't really pay too much attention to the National League regardless anyways because I don't give a shit about any of those teams. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens. I would love to see the Mets make a push and steal one of those spots. Mickey Callaway over there almost got fired, according to the media, midway through the season, and now he's
New York media
been the hottest team in baseball and might just find themselves squeaking into the playoffs. That'd be awesome. Would love to see that. But yeah, man, these last couple weeks are going to be fun. This upcoming series, like we mentioned, is going to be very exciting. So yeah, I've got Savale pitching tomorrow night. It's going to be, man, I'm ready, man. I'm excited. Like I said, glad the Browns are off on Sunday. I can really just focus my attention on that 1:00 Sunday matchup with the Twins. Maybe just might even try to find some tickets down there.
Ooh.
Find my way into that game because that could be a season-defining moment that we might not want to miss. Well, hey, I think that pretty much wraps it up for episode 2 of Calling the Field Stands podcast. Another fun episode. Try to get it spread out to you guys, and hopefully you listen. If not, right when we post it, maybe you're finding it backtracked as you come listen to us and are just getting caught up or just listening to us for the first time. We appreciate all the support and all the listens that we can get. We're going to keep pumping these out once a week. Like I said, pushing for Thursdays. But you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and also YouTube. I mentioned before that we are also trying to incorporate some video content here down the road. Not quite there yet, but hopefully soon. And hopefully you guys are coming along for the journey, and more good content to come. Got some exciting stuff on the docket, as they say. So thanks again, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, as always.
And we'll see you next week for episode 3. Thanks. Peace.